So this is Module 1. Each week we're going to have different learning modules that will go over the strategic planning and management. And so what this course does is go through all the issues that you as a manager are going to see and how to formulate your own strategies on how to deal with situations. And so this course, there isn't a lot of deliverables. Basically, you got a couple of exams, a final report, and a big part of your grade is class participation. Now, for those of you online, what that means is the discussion board. That you need to get on there, you need to be active, and you need to be posting. The different modules basically go through what are the strategies, what drives it, makes it successful or not, and how you go about using information. Here are the different readings. You can read this stuff. But anyway, so each of these modules basically covers So this is Module 1 for Week 1 for OMT520. And so what this course is about strategic planning and management, and also the impact of how technology fits in there. And so what this will give you, though, is enough information where you can go ahead and make your own decisions and formulate your own plans. Now, there's not a lot of deliverables in this course. So you have a couple of exams, a project at the end of the course. And so a big part of your grade is class participation. So week after week, a lot of weeks you have a deliverable, but you need to be on the discussion board or you're going to be looking at a 0. The modules essentially go through what are different strategies, what drives them, and finally how to execute in your organization. Here's a list of the different readings. Every week there are different lecture materials. Also, there are also videos to watch and things like that. So what this module does is talk about some of the basic concepts you're going to need to know to get through this class. And so here's a list. So we've talked about strategy, but another part of strategy also is that strategy is an iterative process, meaning things change or you learn something, and so you feed back again and make changes. And that's what we mean by iterative. Now, tactics are the means that we go about executing something. And so you need strategy as well as tactics in order to be successful. So strategic management is about how do I implement this strategy? How do I use my company's resources? And typically strategic management comes from the top. Now, of course, individual departments have their own strategies, but the overall strategic management. And subsequently, in order to drive that and have values, you need a business policy. An example right now, for example, is Urban Meyer at Ohio State. People say, well, gee, he didn't do anything illegal. Why should he be in trouble? Well, this is not about the law. This is about, did he follow the rules? And that rules pertain to business policy. Your business set of rules are much different than what your legal rights are. And so the classic management model is about thinking about the plan. And one of the big challenges is how do you get your people to buy into what you're doing? When I first became a manager, my boss asked me, so what are your main responsibilities as a manager? And I said, number one is to educate and communicate the strategic intent of the company. Number two is execute that by helping my people become the best they possibly can be and provide them the resources so they can do their job. And then the third part was, how do I create a sense of urgency? Because you need to move fast in the tech field. And so these plans and execution pretty much touch across all business functions, and so they have to be integrated together. typically they don't talk to each other. Like, you don't hear about finance and all, and so it's up to your upper management to decide how each of these are going to play a role and how they come together. And so what my primary activities are, what are the support activities that make that go? Like in R&D, you rely on human resources to supply personnel for you, also when you have conflicts and things like that. So those are support activities. Michael Porter talks about the value chain, and Porter is kind of like the guru of strategy from Harvard University. And what it pretty much comes down to is your value chain is about how do I create value, which means like the products that you make or something like that. How do I go about delivering it, and then I have to support it. And so that's about your inbound to outbound logistics. And so Porter talks about all the aspects of the value chain, and they're also called value networks. Now, in terms of the major tasks involved in strategic management is, first you need a vision. You need the idea of what it is you're going to do. And then comes the part of executing it. And so that's when you set objectives, you assess it, you make changes, you feedback. Now, one thing that was very interesting is I went to an education conference this summer, and I asked these professors, and here we have professors from, I don't know, like 80 different universities, and I just asked them the simple question, what is your vision for your students? And they said, well, I want my students to learn how to do marketing, or I want my students to know entrepreneurship, or I want my students to know market segmentation. Those are missions. Missions are about what you do. Vision is about the overall value that you're touching on. And so they asked me, what is my vision for students? And I'm an industry guy, and so my mission for all of you is basically to prepare you so when you go out into the industrial world, you are prepared, and you know what's coming and you can handle it. And so first of all, my first step is helping you find your voice. What is it that resonates with you? What is it that you want to do? The next part is helping you formulate your dreams that based on what your voice says. Okay, what is it that's going to make me happy in my professional life? And then finally, the third is own your future. And that's how, and especially in entrepreneurship, it's about owning your future, that you don't have to depend on someone else to realize your dreams and all. And so that's a vision. It touches on higher values. And so, yeah, you could just read this. But the point is to a vision is it gives you an overall view. It gives you something to strive for. For example, employees at Apple, why on earth would they ever put up with a jerk like Steve Jobs, who's abusive and mean and not appreciative? Well, they put up with him for the simple reason it's because they believed in his vision, that the vision was worth it, that they were going to change the world through Apple technology. Cisco Systems, you talk to their employees, what is their vision of their company? Their vision of their company is you can't touch anyone else in the world unless you go through our equipment. We allow people to connect from anywhere, anytime. All of a sudden, that's a lot more interesting than building routers. And that's what we mean when we start talking about visions. The missions describes what it is that you actually do or provide, meaning the vision could be just so, up there in the clouds. It's like, okay, but what is it that you guys do exactly? Anyway, and so for the mission of an organization and coming up with the mission statement, these are the things that you need to consider. Creating value of an organization. It's your production and it's through your commerce. And the value added is essentially what it is between what we output and the cost of the input. Who is it that we provide value to? First and foremost, your responsibility is to your shareholders, the people who invested in you. I mean, the reason why you exist is because of the resources they provided. And then there's also stakeholders, and those can be your customers, your employees, your vendors, and everybody else. What are my goals? What is it that I'm actually going to achieve? And goal and objective, they're pretty much the same thing. They get used interactively. I normally use objective when I want to talk about larger things, and goals are basically short-term and more focused types of things. And so those are, and what they are specific targets that you put a plan together for. Opportunity is what is it that I can take advantage of that will result in a gain for my business? And so a lot has to do about timing, and a lot has to do with uncertainty. And that's one thing we see a lot popping up in this is uncertainty. Later on this course, maybe I'll give my talk about the groove. Threats are negative events, and threats are directly related to risk. And what is risk? The chance that a negative event will happen. And again, once again, it creates something damaging. Now the thing about risk and threats and things like that these are things that might happen. And so now you're getting into the realm of game theory. Actually, we have a data-driven decision-making class, hopefully it'll be online soon, that talks about the different kind of games and scenarios and how you deal with this risk and what's optimal. And so strategy exists on different levels, and they have different types of focuses. And so what it comes down to is, how does all this stuff come together? And it comes down together in this nicely organized flow chart, where it starts with your vision and mission, results in your goals and objectives, and feeds back. And again, it's iterative. No strategy. If you are married to a single strategy, you're probably going to be in trouble. You have to be flexible enough to change based on the data and information that feeds back to you. And so that wraps up this module, and I'll talk to you next week.